Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Lord's Delight. Today I want to talk about timing of God. A lot of times in my life, I'm pretty sure you also have gone through phases where you feel like you want God to do something about a particular issue or you want Him to answer a certain thing, but then you feel like He's so late. Does He not know? Why is He delaying so much? But guess what? God is never late. He actually says in the Bible, right? Our times, my times are in His hands. So I want to remind you one thing. Our God is an intelligent designer and He does not do coincidences. He picked the time when Jesus would be born. He picked the time when Jesus would die. He carefully crafted that. He is omniscient. He is a God who knows the future, who knows what happens in my and your life 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now on. And not just that, He knows the date and time and the manner of how we are going to die. So when He has such wisdom, why is it hard for us to trust Him with timing? You need to think about this, right? In the Old Testament, when Joshua was fighting, Moses' hands were held up by Aaron and Hur, and God literally stopped the sun midway until the battle was over. He's a God who can stop time. Does He not know when we need certain thing? Because in Matthew 6, just before the Lord's Prayer, it says, our God knows even before we open our mouth what we need. The first example I want to talk about is Abraham and Sarah. They both thought it was too late to have kids. But then, when it was God's timing, it talks about the fact that Sarah had gone through menopause already. She had a hard time believing that she would conceive. And then Abraham was like, I'm already 100 years old. But that was God's timing for their life to give them a kid when they were that old. The second instance, Moses was called to be the savior for his people, right? To lead them from Egypt to the promised land. But what happened? When he was 40, he tried it on his own. Didn't happen. He ended up running away. But then there was a period where he was roaming about, and then finally, when it was time, God confronted him, or rather engaged him in the burning bush and made him go back to where he fled from to do the same thing he tried doing previously, to lead the people out of slavery. And we also need to realize that they were slaves for centuries under the Egyptians, the Israelites, before being freed by God's hand. So the timing is something that God knows, and He does it in His perfect knowledge, because He knows what comes before, after, and how we are, our personality, how we will respond, what choices we'll make. So for us, in our human understanding, it might seem like it's delayed, but we need to be able to lean on Him, not our own physical understanding. I will give you an example from my life. I am a planner. I like to plan things out to the detail that even when I am traveling, I like to look up the gate I'm landing in, and if I am switching planes, I would like to know, from which gate, how do I get to the other gate? Yeah. This is way too much planning, but I like doing things like that. So a lot of times, spontaneity or trusting in God during the spontaneity, if I'm not planning, is harder for me. So guess what God decided to do? Throw me in a situation like that. It happened in 2016 when I had to plan to travel to 2 countries, and hence I needed 2 visas. It was for professional reasons. So I was traveling to Norway first, so I decided to get that over, and I got the Schengen visa. Then I was traveling to the USA, which meant I needed to get an appointment and go for the interview for the visa and whatnot. I was checking in early May when the next available appointment is, and remember, I need to be traveling the second week of June. And I was traveling from where I'm living to Norway, and then from Norway to US, and then I'll be coming back to where I was. What ended up happening was the wait time for average wait time for an appointment at the US consulate was 90 days. Somehow I had missed that. So when I open up the appointment website and whatnot, look at it, I have no appointments except in July, but I need to leave, I think around 7th or 8th of June, and I did not know what to do. But when I'm praying, God is saying, trust me, I'll take you there. It was really hard for me to trust, but that at least, let's say, if I trust, and God was pushing me to share this faith journey in my fellowship. I was like, Lord, how will I share? What happens if I end up with egg on my face? I don't have an appointment, and everybody will be like, what kind of faith journey it is? Look where it ended up. And I was also telling him, how will I face my supervisor whom I'm supposed to meet in the conference in the US, and that person had already left in May because he had a visa already. It was anxiety filled time, but what God pushed me to do was to give it to him. So which means I had to regularly spend time in the morning praying. If not, I will not be able to handle the anxiety throughout the day. As I spent more time with him, I was able to handle the fact that when God promises something, even if it looks like it will not happen, he will make it happen. Then I kept checking again and again for open appointments. In the end of May, towards the end of May, I think 27th or 28th, I see 2 appointments open. One for the 1st of June for security clearance, and then I think 2nd or 3rd June, I remember, was the actual visa interview. Booked them, and God was so amazing. I cleared both and got the passport in my hand on 5th of June and left for traveling on the 7th of June. And the problem here also was, when I had applied for my Norwegian Schengen visa, I had to wait for the passport to come, and it kept getting delayed as well. Looking back, I can see God's hand throughout everything, because I couldn't just do anything on my own until certain paperworks were approved. So the Norwegian paperwork was done first. I went there and I was expecting get the passport in my hand by a certain date, and no, it got delayed by at least a couple of weeks. And then I was so sure, thinking, okay, I'm only going to make it to one conference where I'm going to present. The other conference was also very important because I was selected to present there as well, and I was so confused. But what God did was, through that journey, made me realize his timing trumps everything. And that's what Ecclesiastes 3:11 reminds me about. He has made everything beautiful in his time. And there is also a beautiful passage in Ecclesiastes that talks about a time to sow, a time to reap, a time to weep, a time to mourn, a time to rejoice, a time to dance. Go read that passage. It gives me such hope that, to me, the visa processing and everything was going delayed, and I was so sure at one point I was not going to get it, but God knew what the outcome was going to be. And I learned so much through the journey of just trusting him and letting go, that he will not let me be ashamed before my supervisors, and they didn't know what was going on. But God guided me in such a way that I was able to go to both places, present and come back, all in a beautiful journey. The trying part was also, when going through the trial, opening up and sharing that in my fellowship. And what I didn't realize was, this was actually helping the faith of many people. My struggle was helping them see that God can work in dire circumstances, and that was a testimony that I did not realize. What I wanted to do was get a solution or an end result, whether a yes for the visa or a no, and then share the testimony. But what God wanted was for people to see the journey of faith that I was going through from the start to the end, for me to be able to declare to people and say, hey, this is what God says, and he'll do it. And he did. So sometimes we will tell testimonies after the fact. Sometimes God might actually prod us to open up to people when we are going through the trial, so they can be inspired, encouraged by seeing God work in our lives. I'm leaving you with 2 verses. Please go read Ecclesiastes 3:11 and Proverbs 3:5 and 6, because we do not know how timing works, but he does. Things that seem late to us does not seem late to God, because his timing is impeccable. Okay then, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.